Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I did a video earlier today which prompted a question from someone. I discussed anorexia on YouTube, and someone brought up a question about competitors, which I'm going to link here. And essentially he asked, is a competitor at 3% body fat, are they at the same risk as anorexics in terms of health consequences? So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing. We'll do a little bit of crafting and let's talk about that. Alright guys, so interesting question, and I think one of the things I need to point out up front, occasionally people say things like, oh, you only bash on people being really ripped and talk about the risk because you can't get ripped. No guys, I don't want to get ripped. I bash on getting ripped because it's stupid and dangerous, and I don't see any merit to it. I see it as all risk, all damage with absolutely zero reward and zero payoff for doing it. It's stupid. Now, I understand some people do it for their ego or philosophical reasons, but you know what? I used to hunt dangerous game on foot for philosophical reasons, but most of you would say that's really fucking stupid, Jason. You're a fucking idiot. Why would you do that? And I would be like, well, you just say it's dangerous because you can't do it. You can't hunt wild boar with a knife. No, you would look at me and go, no, you're fucking stupid. I don't want to hunt 200-pound wild boar with a knife. Are you fucking crazy? I would look at you and go, no, I don't want to destroy my body getting ripped. Are you fucking crazy? That would be my same sort of response. It's things that certain people choose to do, high-risk endeavors that people choose to do for whatever reasons, but that doesn't make it a good idea. And because people object to it and say, hey, this is risky, you need to be aware of that, because people don't seem to be aware of how risky it is and how dangerous it is. At least when someone goes and hunts a polar bear on foot with just a rifle, up in Alaska, where they do get eaten being hunted by them, they at least know that if they mess up, the polar bear is going to eat them. At least people know when they go and hunt a wild boar that if something goes wrong, they could be maimed or die. And it does happen. At least they're aware of the risk. People don't seem to be aware of the risk that getting really ripped can really harm you, and very seriously, and that's why it needs to be mentioned. So, that being said, the first thing I want to address, the 3% body fat. Little side thing is he did say it. There's no one who's ever been 3% body fat that you've ever seen. The leanest guy that I know of was probably like Mike, whatever his name was. Gosh, the guy who died. I can't even remember his name. He was probably 4.5. But even as far as DEXA scans go and their margins of error, it's probably estimated that the leanest, absolute leanest guys you see competing are about 5% body fat. A human being wouldn't survive the journey down to 3%. Usually about 4%, they'd probably start having organs and things shut down. It would probably be fatal to drop to 4% body fat. So we're talking immediate death, not risk down the road at that point. So they're not 3%. Most of the guys are around the 5% range who are really, really, really shredded on stage or in photo shoots. They're about 5% body fat. So we need to get that out of the way first. But as far as the health negatives, yeah, it's extremely dangerous. Any sort of dieting down too lean is dangerous, and it can have long-term organ and hormonal consequences, particularly if you're a lot younger. If you're still developing, which means girls up to 18, boys up to 21, your sexual organs are still developing. Example I knew of excessive dieting down. I used to know a girl, one of my ex's sisters. She used to diet down all the time for wrestling to make weight, and she was pretty much bulimic to do it. And what she found is that years later, as an adult, several years after she was out of high school, because of the hormonal damage and the damage it caused to her reproductive system to do that, and the effect it had on her endocrine system in general, she had 2 periods every single month. Instead of one, she had one every 2 weeks, and she had such intense cramping that she actually couldn't work or do anything for at least a day every time. And she would pretty much lay in her bed and cry and have to take painkillers. That it was worse than any other chick I've ever seen with that. And that was as a result, and the doctors had told her it was a result of that excessive dieting when she was too young. One of the biggest causes you see in TRT being needed by young men is anorexia. Anorexia is a pretty high cause of young men needing TRT, or excessive dieting down, damaging their testicles and their endocrine system because they're still developing. They're 17, 18 years old. They become anorexic, which again, starvation, getting too lean, losing too much body fat, too much body mass in general, and that will still happen if you're lifting weights, guys. You're still going to lose too much body fat. You're going to get too lean. You're going to mess with your hormone levels. Yeah, it's a very good way, particularly if you're younger, to have to go on TRT the rest of your life. To not produce testosterone, it means if you don't go on TRT, Good chance your dick's not going to work. Good chance you're not going to be able to get an erection. So it can affect you very, very negatively. And that's the ironic thing. A lot of guys don't understand this very thing they do that they think is going to get them girls or whatever getting ripped, or guys if they're gay. The whole thing is, if you get too ripped and you're not putting exogenous hormones back in your body, your testosterone levels crash. This is documented. We know this. Again, even Eric Helms' data showed this when he studied pre-contest natural bodybuilders. Their testosterone levels look like 70-year-old men the final weeks of their prep. So again, you're seeing the exact same problems you see with anorexia. You're seeing cratered hormone levels, and in some cases, long-term damage to your hormone levels. Again, that's a pretty serious health risk. I mean, to pretty much damage your endocrine system through excessive dieting to where you need testosterone the rest of your life, or for a female, to have 2 periods a month for the rest of your life. Pretty serious stuff, or in some cases, the inability to even produce children for either sex. You're causing a lot of potential damage just by dieting down. So competitors do have these risks. Organ damage, it's a big one. You are putting a strain on your organs by getting that lean. You're losing fat around your organs. That loses a lot of padding. That can subject your organs to certain damages. So it's very, very risky. It's a risky endeavor. So it's very similar to anorexia. I think it's a valid comparison, because just because they're keeping their muscle mass because they're getting some protein in, and they're lifting weights, or they're using drugs to do it, doesn't mean that the hormone levels aren't negatively affected. In fact, the hormone levels are more negatively affected. But the damage to the organs and everything, think about it. You're still losing all your body fat. When body fat goes too low, again, padding around organs goes away. Even padding around joints and things goes away. You're actually at a higher risk of injuring yourself, injuring a joint, injuring tendons, connective tissue. How many bodybuilders do you see who near they're getting their contest time end up ripping stuff? It happened over and over and over in the pros. That's your highest chance of injuring yourself. And even if you're not even training super heavy, it could be doing heavy 8 rep sets, 10 rep sets. It happens. Guys get injured because, again, they're losing the padding, the things they need to prevent injuries. It's a very dangerous thing to do, and it has risk to it. And people want to associate it with health. They want to associate it with fitness, but it's not. Being 10% body fat, pretty healthy, yeah. That is still in the excellent health range. Most men can drop down to 10% body fat without seeing negative health effects. In fact, they're probably going to have better health markers at 10% body fat than they did at 20. They'll be slightly better. Not going to be dramatically better, but their fasting glucose will probably be a little better. Their total cholesterol will be a little better. They're probably, for those guys, they might be improving their health just slightly. There's nothing wrong with that. They're going to have a better strength to weight ratio. So from a health perspective, getting down to like 10% body fat, perfectly acceptable. Getting ripped, getting photo lean, oftentimes Photoshop and lighting lean. A lot of those guys don't look like that all the time. They don't even look like that the same day. Getting contest lean, it's absolutely dangerous. It can destroy your organs. It can destroy your endocrine system. And I mean, that's about as dangerous as it can get. It is emaciation, and again, it is very similar. The only difference you see between contest level lean and anorexic is that the contest level lean person has more muscle mass. Everything else is going to be the same as far as the negative effects on their organs, the negative effects on their endocrine system. It's all going to be almost identical to an anorexic. You go pull their blood work, they're going to look very, very similar. An anorexic tends to have blood work that looks very similar to a bodybuilder 3 or 4 weeks out from their bodybuilding show. You have a similar hormone profile. You have similar blood work. Why? Because they've done the same thing to their body. They have starved it. And just because you ate some protein and ate more calories than them doesn't prevent the starvation effects. You are still starving yourself. You're in a very large caloric deficit for a very long time when you were already at a healthy body fat to begin with. Dropping to an unhealthy body fat is dangerous. And then again, that's not to discount to say that obesity isn't dangerous, because it seems like when you bring these topics up, everyone wants to jump to the other extreme. Well, obesity is dangerous too. Being really fat is dangerous. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But very few people who are working out seriously are morbidly obese. Very, very few. it's a much, much lower risk, and they're not going to be for long. So they're actually generally doing something about the problem. So anyone watching fitness YouTube channels is probably, hopefully, actively trying to do something about it. Although a lot of the people who come over trolling, and a lot of the people I see who are fans of certain other channels, I do look at them and I do question if they actually lift. And a lot of them probably don't, but that's a whole nother topic. Another topic entirely. But then again, maybe they're just no gainers. So, you know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are training. So who am I to judge? But the point is, people just don't seem to grasp the risk here. They don't grasp that this is just glorified anorexia. It's just male anorexia while keeping some muscle on you. But the thing is, many of these guys, particularly the teen ones, when you see them, when they get contest lean because they haven't had time to build a large amount of muscle, they're still fairly young. A lot of them still look like anorexics. There have been many a natural teenage bodybuilding show that when you look at the photos, you just look at them and go, they just look like an anorexic. Because even though they lifted weights and maybe were eating some protein, they still haven't gained a lot of muscle yet, and they lost muscle from the dieting process, because that invariably is going to happen. And that's something that people have to accept also. When you get ripped, you are invariably going to lose muscle getting there no matter what, because you really and truly are starving yourself. Your body is going to strip some of that muscle off that you worked hard for, because ultimately you are simulating most of the effects of anorexia, and that's going to include loss of lean mass. It won't be as much as them, but you're still going to lose some. You are starving muscle off along with the fat. So, in short, to answer the person's question, yeah, they're right in their question. It's a good question to ask. Is it as dangerous as an anorexic to get shredded contest level lean for a competitor, for a physique competitor? Yes, absolutely. And truth be told, there's very, very little difference between the two, even in the mindset. In my opinion, many physique contests and many physique contestants, it's just a glorified form of anorexia. And again, I like to call like men's physique oftentimes just manorexia. Because that is essentially what it is. The idea that they'll be more attractive and happier if they can just get rid of their extra body fat at any cost. That's the same mindset that an anorexic has. That their life is going to be better when they can get rid of all of their fat. And a lot of them have the mindset of an anorexic, even when they're lean by everyone else's standards, by medical standards, by athletic standards, they still see themselves as fat. You know who else sees themselves as fat when they're really thin? A 90-pound anorexic girl. She sees a 300-pound tub of lard when she looks in the mirror. So if you're a guy and you're at 12% body fat and you're healthy and your blood work looks good and you're strong and fit and you see yourself as fat when you look in the mirror, you are psychologically the same thing as that girl. You are an anorexic. If you see yourself as fat, that is a body image disorder. You should probably get help for it. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.